the doctor came out and said I need the mother and the husband to come to the room now. Ciara is someone, we all loved and could not believe that this was the end. We walked into the hall and we could hear the paddles being used.
I didn't want to be here. I couldn't see how I would ever be the wife or mom that I had been in this condition. I was done. We were visiting Pennsylvania. That's where Dave's family lives, and we were visiting there for Christmas. And about the day after we arrived, Colton started saying that he didn't feel good. His neck was hurting. He didn't really have much of an appetite, and he was just very tired and sleepy.
He was laying on the couch, and I went to lift him, and he just cried out like he was in a lot of pain. There was then that we realized it was, more than just him being sick.
They were able to figure out that he had coronavirus as well as strep, and that he had some abscesses on his neck that were pressing against his spinal cord, so it was causing a lot of pain for him. David stayed at the hospital with Colton because at that point I was not feeling very well.
I was there with him for the next 2 days, and that morning I sent her a text to ask if she was going to urgent care or straight to the emergency room, and she had responded, I'm not even sure if I can make it. My mom ended up driving her to the emergency room, and I came down to be with her, and already the room was just completely full of doctors and nurses. And a nurse came over to me immediately, and she's just like, I just want to make sure you know just how serious this is.
They admitted me, and I remember there were lots of nurses and doctors around. They realized that the oxygen wasn't staying in my lungs, it was actually going out through holes into my stomach, so they needed to put me to sleep. Before going to sleep, I was just asking for a drink of water, and I had no idea that it would be like 5 more months until I was able to actually have a drink of water again. It was all just very fast and kind of scary.
Suddenly, I'm being told that, this is, her life's in danger. And it was just, from that point on, it was one thing after another. And I would go between Colton's room and her room, and every time I visited one of the rooms, I was given more information, and it just kept getting worse and worse. Once I did the second surgery, it was night and day difference with him. He was in a lot of pain, very, very grumpy, a lot of crying, and once I did that second surgery, he was just bouncing on the bed. We had a meeting with one of the doctors, one of the main doctors, and he just laid out everything in front of us. He said, the next 12 hours are going to be the most critical. Right now, she's on a downward path. Things are going to keep getting worse. He said, unless we see things start to plateau, it just, she's on full life support. Like, there's nothing more medically that we can do for her. You're gonna need to pray for a miracle. When the doctor left, my mom just led us in prayer. She just started praying, and my oldest brother, he started praying, and he got about 3 words in, and he just broke down. And at that point, all my brothers started crying, and we just had a whole room of family that was just in tears. Well, we were told very early on that there was a good chance that she might lose limbs. We were so focused on saving her life that we just completely put that in the back burner. It was at one point that she went down for surgery, and it was a specialist that just flat out told us she's gonna lose all of them. Like, I'm absolutely certain she's gonna lose all of them.
Something I really struggled with right as soon as I realized that I had lost my limbs was, what did I do to deserve this? Why did God let this happen to me or choose this for me? And it was something I really, really struggled with. I just couldn't understand how a loving God would do something like that to one of his children.
Yeah, so my mom was going through Ciara's things, what we had in her room, and she saw the books that Ciara had brought with her on our trip. And one of those books was Choosing Gratitude. I
started reading Choosing Gratitude actually probably a few years ago. I found it actually at a thrift shop. As soon as I started reading the book, I knew it would be a book I would need to read over and over again. I am the type of person that easily finds flaws in things much more readily than I find the good things to be grateful for. And Nancy mentions specifically in the book how gratitude is essential for healthy and stable relationships, and I knew I needed to work on gratitude in my marriage and especially in my parenting.
I think it caught my mom by surprise to see the books that Ciara was reading leading up to all of this. My mom started reading the book. My mom put out a post about what Ciara was reading, and just surprised at the way the Lord had led in Ciara's life leading up to this point.
Nancy talks about how gratitude is a life preserver. It keeps you from drowning when you're in difficult circumstances, and that was very true, especially in the hospital when things were the same day after day and I wasn't able to drink or eat or talk. It was a very low time in my life.
There were days that were just extremely dark, extremely difficult to get through. And I had moments where I was afraid to walk into her room. It was just so difficult. But one of the things that we found to do together that really helped was to start listing out the things that we were grateful for.
And it was, a card or flowers or pictures that people sent of who were taking care of the boys, pictures of the boys, things like that I was writing down and finding the goodness of God even in a time when I really wanted to just have a pity party. Gratitude was a life preserver for me at that time. So when I came home from the hospital, I was so excited. I was elated. I had finished the journey in the hospital and I was done with that. Coming home the next day, I realized that I was not at all done and that this was a totally new journey, and it was hard. It hit me really hard. Nobody warned me about that. Coming home and just seeing the places where I used to walk and serve and just get down on the ground and play with my kids. Just being back in my own home was really devastating. It was not what I thought it was going to be. And the day after I came home from the hospital, I again had that moment where I was done. I really was. I didn't want to be here. I couldn't see how I would ever be the wife or mom that I had been in this condition. And I was really struggling. And a friend from church was dropping off some food, and they came right into our bedroom, and she sat on my bed and she told me that right now my job was to take every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. She said, don't even look ahead into the day. Just ask God to help you in this hour. God was gracious, and our kids came back to stay with us. Just God really used them to encourage me. They just kept looking at me and saying, oh, I love you, Mom. I love you, Mom. I'm so glad you're home. And giving me so many hugs and kisses and snuggles. And after that, there was no doubt that I was not done. I was still here, and that God would help me through day by day. So if someone else was singing that they were done, I would say take every thought captive to the obedience of Christ.
We really do have a lot to be thankful for. And those things that mean the most to us, the things that we were most thankful for, those aren't going to change. Those things aren't affected by the fact that she doesn't have arms or legs. All those things that, the Lord's blessed us with, we can still be thankful for those.
You see, we tend to think that if we could just figure out what God's doing and what His purpose is in these circumstances in our lives, then we could thank Him. But the test of my faith is, am I willing to make the sacrifice of thanksgiving when I don't have the answers? When I don't know the whys of what is going on in my life? When there's no way to make sense of what has happened?
I can still have joy, maybe even more joy than before, because really, before my joy was very much based on my circumstances and would change from moment to moment depending on how the boys were behaving or misbehaving. And I think that's something that I have just learned through this is joy is possible always if you are looking to Jesus for it. The gospel has never seemed so wonderful as when so much of what you counted on for joy before has been taken away, and you're trying to find that joy again. And the hope of heaven sounds even better now than it did before. And my youngest, he'll be like, in heaven, Mom, you'll have your arms and legs. And it's so true, and I'm so excited for that, to be able to walk again on my own legs and to be with God. There's a lot to be grateful for.